Someone named Support Schloss just jumped into the waiting room. Who is it? Got a Schloss supporter. I smell football in the air, baby. What's up, everybody? Happy Thursday evening. My, oh my, what a busy week it has been. SEC Media Days, College Football 25, both hitting in the same week. I mean, football must be right around the corner, huh? Feels so good, man. So much to do, so much to consume in the world of college football this week. And of course, today was Texas A&M's day to take to the podium. We heard from Elko, we heard from York, we heard from Turner, we heard from Trey Zune. So guys, I want to hear your takeaways. I want to hear what you took, what perked your ears up, what got you excited, because today's the day. To me, SEC Media Days has always been the kind of unofficial start of the college football season. It's when you get your first taste of the team. You get to hear off-season reports. You get to hear where people have gone since spring, what people have done since spring. You get to see the rosters. We just got a roster report. We got to see bodies transform. And we saw firsthand just how big Shamar Turner looks. He's always looked huge. But apparently he's grown even more than maybe you even kind of realized by the end of last season. Good stuff today, man. This week has always been special. My week on SEC Media Days, this week always culminates in this work trip that I always have at the end of the week. It's an annual trip I have to do for work. It's in McAllen, Texas. I have to take a 4-hour drive from where I live in San Antonio out to McAllen. And on the way there and on the way back, I just listen to a hell of a lot of college football stuff. It is awesome, guys. It is awesome. So as you saw on the screen earlier, I want to hear your takeaways from Media Days. Type it in the chat, or yes, it's a call-in show. We already got 2 people waiting in the waiting room. Support Schloss. Support Schloss in this economy. Okay. And then, of course, Max, Rangers King. I think Max wants to get some things off his chest, and we're trying to coax Jeb into jumping in there. We need Jeb to jump into the waiting room. I want to hear from Jeb. I know Jeb is locked in to Media Days. So, guys, if you could like and subscribe, type in the chat what you took away. I'm excited, man. I'm excited. Elko is such a down-to-business, down-to-earth kind of a guy. No fluff, no riddles. You know, it worked for Jimbo at a time, but it wasn't working lately. So the contrast, it's really nice to hear. And just take everything with a grain of salt, right? Because we're going to be dissecting words to gain knowledge and information about a game that's played on a field. So keep that in mind about everything. We're going to read into a couple of things. I have a couple of notes here, a couple of interesting snippets, but I really want to hear from you guys. So Jeb, what's up? First call-in show in like a month. Sheesh. Yeah, man, it's been a while. Sorry, guys. Been moving, been crazy, but yeah, good to be back. James Busby says, O-line, Trey made me feel more comfortable about what we're going to see from this offensive line. I love Trey Zune. Dude's very poised, very no-nonsense, and he had a couple of interesting things to say. He mentioned that Cushing is much more detail-oriented. They sort the details, even in a play that results in a positive outcome. He's coaching them up. You know, maybe you didn't get there the way you're supposed to get there, and maybe that won't cut it on a Saturday versus Notre Dame. So you're going to rewind, go back, and make sure you do it right. And you kind of get similar reports like that across the board. It's a very good point, James. Much more comfortable about the offensive line. And, of course, comboed with Tommy Moffitt. We'll talk about that in a second. I think everybody who took to the podium mentioned Tommy Moffitt. Common thread. Beautiful to hear. Rangers King, I see her in the chat. I see her in the waiting room already. Jeb says, if the O-line hasn't made some progression, then damn. Because they all have a lot of experience by now. That's the thing, man. Super experienced O-line by this point. It's no longer a rookie O-line. It's no longer raw. We can't use that as an excuse. The youngest guy starting will be Chase Basantis, who has a full year of SEC starting. Grizzled veteran. He's traversed the portal. He's come back. He's going to be playing his natural position of guard this year, we think. I mean, do you guys think there's a world where he moves back to right tackle if they don't see what they want from Crownover and Ruben Fothery? Or do you think they just commit to Basantis at guard now? Do you think anybody else can take over that right tackle position? Because as far as I'm concerned, the 4 to the left of the right tackle position, you have a pretty good chance of finding a productive player for those positions. Now, right tackle, I think, is kind of makes me a little bit more nervous than the others. And I wanted to make this point. Tackles are super rare. Good tackles are super rare in this sport. So often, that's a position that teams have to hunt for. A priority position in recruiting, a extremely, extremely scarce commodity in the transfer portal market. How fortunate are we to say that one of our best offensive players on the team is the left tackle, if not the best going into the year? I think it's Connor, maybe it's the receivers, then it's Trey Zune. And to have this guy as a captain on the team, a leader on the team, and to be as productive as he is, so fortunate. It's so fortunate. And for whatever issues A&M has had with the O-line, you can rest assured you're going to get solid play from your left tackle, and that's absolutely huge, especially for a quarterback coming off of injury. So of course we expect improvement on the offensive line. I think that's where A&M has the most room to gain, obviously. Is that a bold statement? No. But it feels really good to have that guy in that room. We have to strictly talk about A&M football and SEC Media Days. Nothing else matters. Yeah, I won't talk about this sitting on my desk right now. I won't talk about, my plumbing that needs reworking after I took that last night. TMI, maybe. Maybe a little bit much for the call-in show, but we have to be real. Most of you guys were there last night, saw me lose my first game in CFB 25 to Texas. Brutal. But we won't talk about that today. We're talking football today, and whatever support Schloss has to talk about, who knows where that's going to go. I don't even know what to expect. Antiag says, you may be surprised where these talks can go. I agree, guys being dudes. All right, here we go. Here we go. Rangers King says, it's time for Josh Pate to eat some words, baby. Also love what York and Zune had to say today. Absolutely. Absolutely. Hope to hear more about that when you call in, Rangers King. I remember walking next to Shamar Turner, says Jeb, in the spring game of 20, and he was huge in person, and he's even bigger now. I'll talk about it in a second. I have some stuff I want to get through. We'll get to it. As a true fish, huge now. Ronnie Barker out of Tokyo has been watching it all. Love to see Elko not hype up A&M too much. He knows they will prove it on the field this year, and that's been a common thread. He said pretty much every time he's taken to the podium and given an opening statement, we're not going to talk about it. We're going to be about it. We're going to roll up our sleeves and work. And you really get that that's the idea behind every player. Every player's kind of taken on that persona, taken on that mantra over the course of the offseason. And we've heard, I don't remember which guy said it, but one of them said, I think it was Shamar Turner, maybe it took him about a week to adjust to the new expectations, which were lofty in the world of accountability, discipline, being where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be there. Just work. And sounds like they picked it up, and they've been forced to follow this mantra, which is really cool. Elko, definitely the most intelligent coach in the SEC. Yeah, he's going to say the least, but might be the most intelligent. You're absolutely right. He has that aura about him. TX427, good to see you, man. Torrin York answered every question as if they had given him the night before, and he was able to study his response. That was a point I was going to make, and I guess we'll just address it now. Dude, isn't it crazy how a sophomore is able just to, there's no thinking about it. It's just, boom. This is my answer with conviction. This is how I feel about it. I'm that guy. I'm a leader on this team. Everybody can follow me. He owns it. And someone asked him what his role was going to be on the team. What do you expect your role to be? How do you expect your role to change? He's like, I'm going to be the Mike linebacker and make every call for the team. And that was it. Beautiful. What you expect at this point from Torrin York. Great to hear it. What are your thoughts about the new game distracting from media days? Okay, I'm guilty of this, by the way. I have not paid attention to any other team's media days besides A&M's at this point. But like I mentioned earlier, I have 8 hours of driving this weekend. I will have it covered by then. I've seen a lot of podcasts about how they're losing views talking about SEC media days and not the game. Yeah, I can imagine. Dude, the game is awesome. Don't get me started. I want to be better at this game. The dopamine hit I get from scoring a touchdown in that game is significant. The game makes me feel good. It's a bit of a problem. It also makes me feel bad, especially when I have to take salsa after a loss. Borakua Aggie, a.k.a. Nelson. Jimbo just ran his mouth. Elko's language has essence. Sure. And he arguably says more by saying less, which is awesome. I still love that Jimbo talked like Boomhauer, comically. Shamar name-dropped Reed Adams, so I guess that's a pretty good indicator that he might be starting. I think a lot of guys have mentioned Armaj Reed Adams at this point. Sounds like he really set the tone in spring. Sounds like he really made his presence known in spring, and he's been mentioned time and time again, so it's awesome. No idea who's starting at the guards. Do believe Reed Adams will start at one spot. Yeah, it sounds like, there's too much smoke for Reed not to be a candidate, which gives you a lot of room to play around because you have Reed Adams, you have Basantis, you have Naboo, you have Fowey, you have Dewberry. That's 5 interior guys, and then you have TJ Shanahan, who was good in spring as the backup center and gained 30 pounds since the start of last season. So he's grown before our eyes. So you have 5 guys with someone right behind him. I mean, the depth on the interior is great. Several guys that can play center, that can snap the ball. Snapping the ball is an underrated commodity in the game. 5 guys that you can move around there, 5 guys that can help you sustain injuries, 5 guys to push each other. And like I mentioned earlier, if you have to slide a guy to right tackle, you have enough bodies to do that. If you're not happy with the right tackle battle, maybe sacrifice a little length there and get maybe just a better player in there. That's getting ahead of things. We have to give Crownover, we have to give Fathery their chance. It's just not always, there's just not as much, recent positivity around those 2 guys. I think Crownover had some good moments, but still up and down. This is the year for Crownover because, like we've said many times, fully transitioning out of that tight end build, gaining 30 more pounds in this offseason, spending more time in the saddle at that right tackle position, practicing, playing, doing everything. But yes, TX427, Reed Adams, definitely a guy. Definitely a guy. If Trey has a great year, he's a first rounder. Look, it's a scarce commodity. It's very much on the table. It's very much on the table. He has to be, right? And a captain at that. Why do they make salsa that hot for idiots like me? Simple as that. York more mature than me. Me too, man. 5 guys, not naming the restaurant. Yeah, I'm not naming the restaurant. 5 guys, and I'm not talking burgers. Jimbo did say Crownover could be an NFL tag. Isn't he like 6'9"? Like 330 now? Yeah, very possible. Okay, before we get into the calls, let me go ahead and get into my notes, my takeaways. I have them written down right in front of me. I'm just going to go through them. These are things that I found interesting, things that I'm sure you found interesting, and then I'm going to give you guys the floor. Keep typing what your big takeaways were, and if you want to call in, you can just call in and give me a few takeaways and get off. No pressure. It can be a quick call, no big deal. Jeb, I have notes every show, and they're not professional. They're pretty sloppy. So let's start. So I want to start with a couple common threads that I think we heard from multiple people, things that were consistent and have now been consistent since Elko took over. By the way, A&M one side, Dos Equis on the other. Beautiful. So I mentioned it. I'll go through it again. Accountability, discipline, the effort to hold the man next to you accountable. This is obviously the core emphasis of the offseason. So we actually got a breakdown during media days today of how exactly they're accomplishing this. They grouped players into mini teams, and if anybody slacked in that mini team, the whole team was punished. So one guy is late for practice. Everyone else makes it to practice on time or waits or meetings or class or breakfast or dinner or whatever. That whole group is being punished. And that's kind of how it works in football. It's a team sport, perhaps the most team-oriented sport in American sports. I mean, yeah, I think in basketball, a guy can take over. I think in baseball, maybe someone in the field isn't as utilized based on the hitter out there. In football, it's a well-oiled machine. You have to be machine. All cogs have to work together. So to have this emphasis in the offseason in a non-football context, I think addresses something that we have discovered as potentially an issue under the previous regime. I think by now we've gotten enough hints in the language of players, whether it's in interviews with Texags, interviews at the podium from Elko, and the emphases we're seeing, that maybe guys were getting away with a little bit too much under the previous regime. And I think they're really putting the mantra of how you do anything is how you do everything into action. They're making winning a habit in the offseason. They're making accountability a habit in the offseason. And of course, when you're not putting pads on, not actually physically practicing in the offseason, you have to build in every aspect that you possibly can, in every way that you can touch the players. And I think this addresses one of the key issues with the team last year. So you hear that from everybody. You hear it from Elko, York, Turner, Zune. You hear it every time a player's talking about this system. And it sounds like at first maybe it kind of was off-putting, a little bit of a culture shock because it's such a change of culture. But apparently, I have to believe that's exactly what the doctor ordered based on what we had seen before. So if that equates to wins and losses, who knows? Who knows? But I think it's going to equate to a more disciplined together team, a team that's been building camaraderie throughout the offseason. Another common thread, overall praise for Tommy Moffitt. Amongst the players, I think 2 out of 3 or all 3 players mentioned the difficulty of his workouts. And I think Shamar mentioned how, yes, they're pushing you to the very end, but they're using science-based research, science-based evaluations, studies. We all know that Moffitt's on the cutting edge of the science behind physical training. They're pushing people to that threshold. They're pushing bodies to the threshold, getting the absolute most to get the absolute most out of them. And it sounds like it's been a very difficult offseason in the training room in the best of ways. And if you didn't see my recent video or haven't seen Carter Carroll's article about it, a lot of these players have put on quite a bit of weight. And they're emphasizing Olympic lifts. And me personally, I mean, I played a little bit of football. I've stayed in the gym. Whenever I'm doing hang cleans, Olympic lifts, I just feel a little bit more zip in my step, a little bit more quickness, a little bit more pop. And that's what they're emphasizing. More Olympic lifts before, more difficult, more strain in the weight room. And of course, Tommy Moffitt's track record speaks for itself. How he's permeated the national landscape with his philosophies, ideologies, how people have adopted the Moffitt method. You know that he knows what he's doing. Very exciting to hear the praise for him. Definitely will be noticed, I believe, especially at the offensive line. A couple of things from Elko. And this is more on Tommy Moffitt. I'm going to read you a quote from Elko. This is regarding the team, training, where they're at in training, where the bodies are. I think we've stayed healthier. I think it's been a big piece of it. If you look back in the last couple of years, we've gone into training camp with parts of the group limited and not able to practice maybe the way they wanted to, and always hurts your ability to get the cohesion and being able to get the level that you want to get to. And thinking back, I think we had an issue with players sitting out in fall camp, because obviously in this sport, you don't get a preseason, you don't get a dress rehearsal. In some cases, you don't even get a ramp-up game. You don't get an FCS game or a New Mexico game before you play the Clemsons, before you play the Miamis. In this case, you just get Notre Dame. So all your camaraderie building, you're on the field stuff, not talking off the field stuff, not talking lunches, not talking dinners, not talking meetings. You're on the field training. You're on the field chemistry building. That's 4 weeks in fall camp, man. And if you're missing chunks of that, you're missing developmental sessions. It's like skipping kindergarten. Like, yeah, okay, maybe you could handle first grade, but you're going to be far behind. Those are developmental years you're talking about right there. These are developmental groundwork practice sessions. This is where it happens. And I don't want to, you don't have to name names, but if you follow the fall camp reports from the last couple of years, a lot of guys missed a lot of practice. And some, maybe for better reasons than others, at least from what we can tell, it sounds like this is a very healthy team going into fall camp, according to what we're hearing from Mike Elko. Huge. And at this point, you would be hearing if people were, not healthy. And it sounds like Connor, 100% right now. Shamar Turner mentioned that he's 100%. Obviously, Trey Zune saying this is his first fall camp at 100%. Huge. A note on some depth chart stuff, some rotation stuff from Elko. And this is a quote I'll read to you on the wide receiver room. And keep in mind, we're reading into words to depict what's going to happen on the field, so to take everything with a grain of salt, but we're going to go through this for information right now because we're sickos and we love this game. Here's the quote. I think Noah Thomas has had a phenomenal season. I think Ja'Day Walker has a great offseason. We expected that. So, we're happy with what Moose Muhammad has done. Good to hear positivity about Moose. Cyrus Allen will be a huge addition for us, as expected. And Jacob Bostic will help us. I think we've got the pieces in place. We've just got to go out there and continue to develop the group. They can kind of become what they're capable of becoming consistently. I think that's the beginning thing. So first, the Moose bit, real quick. We got a quote from Elko earlier in the offseason saying we're still working on consistency from Moose. He has the potential. We just need to see it day to day. And to hear a positive quip right here, and of course you're not going to hear anything negative right now, but for him to, single out Moose and mention have a positive statement about Moose, I think is good. But you couple that with what we just saw from Moose in the roster, and I thought you could take this bit of info one of two ways. Moose Muhammad lost 10 pounds on this year's roster, and it's like, okay, is he slacking on the diet? Was this calculated loss of 10 pounds? Is he trying to work on his speed? Was he not doing the diet right? Well, now that we're getting another positive mention about Moose, I am leaning more into the idea that this was a calculated 10 pounds that he shed, maybe trying to increase that top end speed, maybe trying to increase that quickness, maybe being more convicted in his off the field study, practice, everything involving the game. So I think that's positive. Obviously, when the last thing you heard about Moose was like consistency, work on that, I think that's good. But I think more significantly than that, the mention of Jacob Bostic, who was isolated on the anemic Iowa offense. Relatively unknown commodity, at least as far as college tape goes. For him to be singled out amongst the 5 receivers mentioned at media days, I think that sheds some light onto the rotation. Would you guys agree? I mean, obviously, it's very possible that's not the case. We still have fall camp to get through. But for him to be mentioned, and for us to look at this room and see 3 guys at the top with Jade, Noah, Moose, to kind of estimate and assume that Cyrus Allen would find his way in there. And then beyond that, after Jabari Barber went down, kind of wondering who would it be? Would it be a freshman? Would it be a Micah Tease? Would it be an Isaiah Williams? Jacob Bostic was the one mentioned. So look Jacob Bostic's way when you're looking at that next wave of receivers coming off the bench. And, of course, you can lean heavily on those 3 guys, those 4 guys that we knew about. Injuries happen. Rotation throughout the game has to happen. Jacob Bostic could be the guy. Of the players, moving off of Elko for a bit, I'll let you guys continue with the Elko talk if you would like. Shamar Turner was probably my favorite interview of the week. I just kind of loved his playfulness. Answered every question insightfully. Not a guy that I think we've heard from too much over his 4 years. With that D-line, you always had leaders. You always had guys that you could lean on for interviews and stuff like that. Really cool to hear him. A couple of takeaways from him. He said he put on 30 pounds. And, of course, we saw that I think he put on 10 pounds from last fall camp measurement to this fall camp measurement, going from 290 to 300. Of course, a fall camp measurement doesn't account for the wear and tear of a season. So he said he gained 30 pounds. I'm guessing he ended the season at 270 after you're depleted from a season. Speaking from experience, I'm sure you guys know a football season, you're going to lose weight. It's just how it happens. So how you start the year, you're going to lose the year. This man pinned his ears back and went to work, man. 30 pounds, obviously battling through some injuries. He also mentioned that he became healthy a few weeks ago. When he was asked about the room and how things went in the offseason, who were kind of the best guys in the room, he mentioned Shamar Stewart. He mentioned DJ Hicks. He mentioned Nick Scorton. 3 guys you expect to be, starter, if not rotational, in the case of DJ Hicks. Sounds like DJ Hicks is probably projecting to be the starter. I don't know. Albert Regis might have an argument there. Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy could be a wild card for that starting position. Shamar Stewart, Shamar Turner, and Nick Scorton. Very likely they're starting, with Scorton and Stewart starting at end. Turner inside. So many Shamars. Sorry, I'm getting scrambled. Just positive stuff from Shamar Turner. Obviously, he mentioned Moffitt. He mentioned how that stuff's been very positive. Trey Zune, very much a no-nonsense kind of a guy, very quick with his answers, very intelligent with his answers. My biggest takeaway, and he kind of mentioned this before, he mentioned the emphasis to details with the coaching of Adam Cushing. I want to hear anything positive from the offensive line coach. Music to my ears. He also mentioned how the team is taking on the difficulty of Moffitt's training. Obviously, that's the room we think is going to get affected most heavily by Coach Moffitt. And then Torian, we mentioned it earlier. His overall poise when answering questions is just kind of honestly borderline mind-blowing for a guy of his age and his experience, how he's able to so quickly and, just efficiently answer questions. He absolutely owns the leadership role. He stands on it. He's only a sophomore. It's crazy. He mentioned Damian Sanford as a guy that took strides in the offseason, a guy that really took his training seriously, looks really good in the weight room. There's obviously an open linebacker position there. DeShields maybe projects as the favorite to get that starting nod going into camp. But Sanford's a guy that, don't be surprised if he's getting in the rotation, if not maybe pushing for a starting spot. He mentioned the overall speed of the linebacker room, which I think looking at the room, you can definitely see that. Very clear he has a chip on his shoulder. Very clear that he plays the chip on his shoulder, and he mentioned it. He doesn't shy away from it. So first of all, in being a guy that wasn't heavily recruited until the end of his recruitment, even by A&M, that adds to his urgency, that adds to his story. Also, not getting recruited by Texas, he definitely, holds a grudge there. He doesn't shy away from that. It's personal for him, and that's awesome to see. Of course, Aggies are going to love that from Torian York, our leader, the leader of the defense. So, guys, those are some of my biggest takeaways. I'm going to go through chat right now, see what you guys have to say, and maybe we'll get some more takeaways here in the call-in portion of the show. So far, I have 2 people in the waiting room. Anybody wants to call in, quickly give your takeaways. You don't have to stay on long. If you want to do that, go ahead. If not, it's all good. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. What up, Noble Guy? I see you. Rangers King say, I would argue hockey is the most team-oriented sport just because even the best players are only on the ice half the time, and it's still really hard to consistently dominate like an elite quarterback would. I wouldn't know that, but how can a quarterback be elite without an offensive line protecting him? How can a quarterback be elite without receivers running their routes efficiently? I believe you that hockey has that, though. I'm just not a hockey fan. Jeb says, healthy team. Man, we haven't heard that in quite some time. Absolutely huge. Jeb says, really need Bostic and Tease to step up as depth pieces. Absolutely. We're so secure with the top three. We feel so good about them. And I honestly love that they lost weight because I think top-end speed might have been an issue, but that can help. I mean, also speaking from experience, losing 10 pounds is significant when it comes to moving around. Gaining 30 pounds is significant with moving around. I know. I gained 30 pounds freshman to sophomore year in college. Was not good weight, I'll admit. I was more powerful, but I sucked at agility. I was slow. Pulling was harder. It made a big difference. So these weight fluctuations, they're significant. TX427 says, yeah, we need a receiver that no one is talking about to step up and be a surprise. It's going to be someone, man. There's too much talent. There's too much talent in there. James Busby says, this will be a step-up year for Moss. 1,000-plus yards incoming. Dude, if he's healthy, I totally agree. I've been saying it a couple years since we got glimpses of him in 2022. This dude projects as a solid starting SEC running back. With a good O-line around him, he's definitely a 1,000-yard receiver. I think we've seen enough. It's just the health. Surprise contribution could be coming from the tight end room, maybe. Definitely, dude. There's some serious potential in that room. I would say a lot of unproven commodities. You got to see it first. You got a lot of good candidates in there. Absolutely. I watched Bostic's practice tape at Iowa. He looks like Josh Reynolds, runs good routes, shows quickness, just needs playing time. I love that he was mentioned. Losing Jake Johnson does sting a bit, says Jeb. Wasn't super athletic, but had great hands and ran good routes. 100%. You're kind of starting over a little bit in the receiver room. Of course, you have that year of experience under Donovan Green, the great leader he is, the great player he is, but sitting out a year with the ACL, that's significant. Jake Johnson and Green would have been a nice duo, of course. We definitely have a ton of options at linebacker. Absolutely, says Jeb. TX47, I think with the addition of the transfers, we have a good mix of tight ends that can line up and block, split out, and cause mismatch in coverage. In addition to the weight that they all gained, I think across the board, the tight end room might have had the best weight gain in the offseason. And based on Tommy Moffitt's track record, based on what we're hearing about him, that must be looked at as positive weight and not dead weight. I will take good blocking tight ends in Colin Klein's system. Does A&M keep any fullbacks on the roster? They get rid of them. I honestly don't think there are any scholarship fullbacks on roster. I think we're going to have tight ends moving around. I think we're just going to get creative with the tight end position. And I think that's something Colin Klein, is ready for. Jeb says, I think Isaiah Williams will be a breakout freshman at receiver. Very good chance. He gained 8 pounds over the offseason. Okay, guys, we're getting into these callers. But first, Drew. I took pre-workout before this. Got to use the restroom. We'll be right back with the first caller, Support Schloss. All right, guys. So we have our first caller. Sounds like it's going to be a little bit of an off-topic situation here with Support Schloss. Let's see how this goes. Support Schloss, you're on with Drew. Do you support Schloss, and why?
Off topic. Man, what are you talking about?
Well, this is a little bit out of left field. I mean, this is like 2 weeks ago. We've had a lot of.
Man, how can we not address how that season ended?
Okay, you want to talk about it? You want to talk about baseball right now? You have the floor. Why are you supporting Schloss? What's wrong with you?
He's a great baseball coach. Look at what he done for us.
Okay.
He took us to the national championship game, and it's Trev Albert's fault.
It's Trev. Go on.
Trust me, dude. It's his fault. Schloss wanted more money for the program, and Alberts wouldn't give it to him. Okay.
You don't think okay. I don't think that's true. I don't. I think A&M has a better path to getting, baseball renovations, getting what he wants than Texas does right now. I think A&M's 100% closer to getting the baseball field and facilities renovations than Texas is right now. I think it's absolutely on the back burner for Texas. It's in the forefront for A&M. So I disagree there.
So why would he leave? We know he's a man of honor. He wouldn't just do that. What happened behind the scenes?
Look, it's very possible that he just wanted to go work with Chris Del Conte. It's very possible that, A&M just wasn't it for him. He's just a snake. It's just what happened.
Well, sir, I don't believe that. I think we lost a good one, and I think our baseball program's in trouble.
Have you seen the roster going into next year? Have you seen the recruiting class that's building? Have you seen the transfer portal class that's building? I mean, sir, we're in great shape. We're in great shape for a 2 to 3 year run right now. And you keep building that reputation as a baseball power. You keep making your deep Omaha runs. Eyes are on this program. Coach Early's reputation is already skyrocketing for a first-year coach. Players love him. Players are recruiting other players, talking up Coach Early. I think we're in a pretty good spot right now, and I think A&M baseball just may be in a better spot than Schloss left it. And we give Schloss his credit. He did a lot for us. Set the foundation. That's fine. It's okay to say that. But it's also okay to, bye-bye. I'm done with him, so stop making me talk about him. Stop making me talk about him. You said your piece. It's done. We're past this. But you're right. We needed to address it. Yes, so Tyler makes a good point. The biggest loss is Max Weiner. Great pitching coach. He transformed our pitching room by himself.
So what's the reaction going to be when they come to College Station next year?
I mean, what do you think? We're not hissing. We're booing when he comes. I mean, I know that's kind of cringy to say, but we're booing when he comes. He's going to get – you remember Chris Beard going back to Texas or going back to Texas Tech?
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be similar to that, if not worse. You better believe Bluebell Park will be a very hostile environment for good old Schlossie boy when he comes to town. It's going to be bad. You want to go?
I'll go, sure.
All right. I'm gonna email you, okay?
Yes, sir. Now I got one more question for you.
Sure.
Did you see what Lane Kiffin said and to Paul Feinbaum?
Yes, but remind me.
This was today. Paul Feinbaum was interviewing him on SEC Media Days, and he said Lane Kiffin said straight to his face, "I don't really know what you're good at." It was a little uncomfortable.
Oh, I'm pulling that up right now. I heard about this. But I didn't see it. We're pulling it up right now on live. We're doing this on the fly. I heard about this, but I never looked into it. Like, I'm prepping for this big work thing this weekend, so I've just been CFB 25 and A&M's Media Day.
Man, listen, my ass kind of puckered. I cringed. It was hard.
It puckered. Was it beautiful? I honestly, maybe underrated. Maybe not a good thing to say. I kind of enjoy Lane Kiffin, I'm not going to lie. I think he's kind of funny.
I do. He's got a sleazy streak, but he's kind of fun.
Yeah, he's kind of fun. All right, hold on. Let me get this situated here. We're in a new studio here. We're in a new studio here, so give me a chance to, get this straight. All right.
Yes, sir.
Let's see.
Plays bad boy.
College game day, you had to make your big splash, and they were watching it because I know the other person in the room that was watching it with them. And you said what a joke I was. I'm the Miley Cyrus of college football coaching, and I should be fired. And they looked at each other, and later that night I was fired. Yeah, by the way. So, but hey, look what happened. I would have never got to work for Coach Saban. All these other things wouldn't happen. So I appreciate you for helping getting me fired. Thank you.
Look at what you're doing today. You're predicted to go to the playoffs. And look at Miley Cyrus. She's had a nice comeback.
So you were wrong on that. I mean, you put me down with that. So really, I don't really know what you're good at. Like you predicted that Coach Saban was done. That didn't happen. You basically said Miley Cyrus stinks, and she's still going.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's always.
That's incredible. He went after him.
Yeah, that's uncomfortable if you're Paul.
That was so uncomfortable. Okay. I'll say this about Paul Feinbaum. He's built himself a great platform. I think with the call-ins that he gets from the unhinged SEC fans, that's kind of what built him up to what he is, right? Like, that's what he was known for. And it's just connection building. I'm not here to hate on anybody. It's just, how is it Paul Feinbaum? How is Paul Feinbaum like ESPN's college football guy? I kind of agree with Kiffin. I think Feinbaum's a good dude. I'm not trying to hate on him. I just like, what's so spectacular about him? I would, Kirk Herbstreit's the man.
Well,
Kirk Herbstreit's like, I like Kirk Herbstreit. He's more college. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Paul Feinbaum's never been spectacular to me.
I don't really think of Paul Feinbaum as a college football guy. He's an SEC guy. He's a Southeastern football. And let's be honest, that's the heart of college football.
Yeah.
And he's been around for a long time.
Yeah. You got to give him credit because he's built himself an absolutely amazing platform. He's built all these connections. He's very respected. I mean, he's on with Stephen A. I mean, that's the Stephen A. list right there. So good job, Feinbaum. I mean, for such like I don't know. Anybody can do it if Paul can do it.
I mean, I'd take that ass chewing from Kiffin for that salary Feinbaum gets.
I know, right? I mean, Feinbaum's done well for himself. I respect the hell out of him. I mean, he's a guy that he can be an example for anybody who's trying to get to that position. So well done, Paul Feinbaum. But Lane Kiffin, dude, he held that in. I'm sure he didn't show his cards before he went up to the stage, or else maybe they wouldn't have let him on. And then boom, that's amazing. I want to watch the rest of this interview. I'm sure it's extremely awkward. Thank you for bringing that to light. That's hilarious.
Yes, sir. I know you got plenty of callers, so I'll let you go. But one more thing. Maybe
you can
one
keep
day,
going. I only have one caller on, but go ahead. One day.
Okay, I'll keep going. I got stuff to talk about. Maybe one day you can beat Paul Feinbaum. I mean, you're smarter than he is.
Oh, I don't think I'm smart. That guy. No. I'm happy just broadcasting out of my multi-million-dollar spare bedroom. I'm fine. I'm no Feinbaum. I'm no Feinbaum.
You could be. Everyone starts somewhere.
Yeah. We'll see.
I mean, we see your Twitter, your responses. You're building up, sir. You're building up.
Well, thank you. So this man supports me. He supports Coach Schloss. I don't know what to make of that. You're putting me in this Schloss category in your mind. I don't know how I feel about that, but I appreciate that, good sir. I appreciate that.
Well, it's going to be Drew Tamu on game day one day. I see it. Give it 15 years.
15 years. I'll be 60. All right. Anything else on media days? Anything else on college football? Your excitement coming into the year? How you feeling, Support Schloss?
I'm feeling pretty good. I think we're going to have a good season. We're not going to go undefeated. I could see a playoff run. I don't know.
Great home slate.
I feel very good about Notre Dame. I think we're going to get them. They do not play well on the road in these big environments.
It's true.
Had it been at home, I'd be nervous. I just have a feeling we're going to beat them.
Yeah.
I don't know why. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's by double digits.
Damn.
I said it.
You did say it. Damn. Well,
Yes, sir.
All right, more SEC stuff. I have one question for you. Since we're talking about going undefeated and whatnot, I was thinking about some SEC teams today. And one team that kind of has my interest peaked is the Georgia Bulldogs. You look at them going into the year. Probably the best roster in college football again, but maybe the most difficult schedule in college football this year. What should a Bulldog expect out of the season this year? Because that's kind of I'm kind of having a trouble wrapping my mind about what they're going to do this year. It's like the best roster, but the toughest path. Are they just in the pack this year? Are they going to go undefeated again? Are they going to lose one game? Are they falling off? Because there's some really tough games on their schedule. They're going to Texas this year.
I think they play Ole Miss, right?
They go to Ole Miss.
I think that's going to be the game that gets them.
That's the one that gets them. All right.
But, in this sort of environment, college football now, losses don't really mean too much. It's kind of becoming more the NFL where you can lose.
Yeah, it's true. They can lose 2, maybe 3 in the SEC. Who knows? They do play Texas the week after Texas goes to the Red River rivalry, so I'd not be surprised to see them have their way with Texas because of that factor.
Oh man, that's such a tough draw for Texas. It really is.
The 1-2 combo, but they did get a nice. I think the rest of their season allows for close to 10 wins, unfortunately. However, that's a really tough combo.
I think Florida has the hardest schedule, don't you think?
Yeah, for sure.
Because keep in mind they have a worse roster and a worse coach.
Yeah, they're looking like they're in a pretty rough situation. Georgia also travels to Bama next year, so that's 3 games right there that look really tough.
Okay, I'm sorry. One more thing I want to get your opinion on.
Let's go.
You got me going. What do you think is ultimately going to happen with the ACC and specifically the Florida State and Clemson? Because we know them 2 motherfuckers trying to get out of there.
Yeah, they're pushing hard. Wouldn't it be funny if they just don't get out of there? They stay in the ACC picks up Notre Dame, and the ACC is one of the power conferences. It just doesn't seem like that's the scenario. I think we're going to see kind of the power shift to where the current Big 12 – I mean, what if they go to the Big 12? What if they go to the Big 12?
That would be not as good as the Big 10 and the SEC, but there's some fun teams in there.
Yeah.
Oklahoma State, there'd be some interesting matchups you've never seen before.
I mean, Arizona is damn good. Utah is like a perennial – solid team at this point. Those are some consistent teams. Oklahoma State, extremely consistent team. You add Florida State and Clemson in there, that adds to the power of that conference, maybe another recruiting point for the other teams in that conference. I think it could be a lot of fun. I think it could be a lot of fun to where you kind of see that power shift where that, that odds and ends conference that's kind of the Big 12 right now, maybe that becomes the ACC and the Big 12 becomes one of those power conferences. But I really don't know what's going to happen. I couldn't tell you the outcome. I just find that outcome pretty appealing, if I'm being honest.
I just don't think the Big Ten or SEC wants Clemson or Florida State at this point.
That's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds
just
like.
Because of their contracts.
Yeah. That's what it sounds like. I really don't know. We'll see what happens, but it still sounds like they're going to eventually try to be on the move somewhere. But hey, maybe they stay in the ACC and nothing changes. Who knows? What would you put your money on? What do you think would happen?
I don't see them going. I just don't see them getting to the SEC or the Big 12, or excuse me, the Big 10 anytime soon.
Yeah.
I think if the Big 12 could find a way to increase their revenue compared to the ACC, that would be big. Not necessarily. Now it won't ever reach the Big 10 and the SEC money, but if it could at least get to a point where it could compete, then I think
maybe by way of private equity firms, maybe that's the path. Maybe that's the path. Who knows?
Mean, the Big 12, they just won't die. They just keep coming. They find a way to stay alive. I would not be shocked to see Florida State and Clemson there.
Big 12 has definitely been
Very
one of the more proactive conferences in this whole ordeal. Yeah, I'd be interested to get the next caller, Max's take on this. I'm sure he can shed some light on where we're at.
UFC? You ever watch UFC?
Oh, I watch a lot of you.
The Big 12 is just like Nate Diaz. They're not the best, but you can't knock them out. No matter how many times you punch them in the head.
Yeah. They might bleed. They might look messed up, but they're going to keep coming at you. That's absolutely true. I thought you were talking UCF. I thought you were talking Gus Malzahn there, but you were talking UFC. I got you.
Did I say UCF?
No, I think you said UFC. My brain said UCF.
All right. Well, it's probably because you played college football too long last night. So.
Oh, dude, I'm playing too much. I'm addicted. Anyway, any closing thoughts? We got another caller waiting, but if you have any closing thoughts, I'll hear you out.
No, man. I hope the best for our baseball program, and we're gonna spit on Texas when we see them, and that's all I got to say.
We're gonna spit all over them, piss down their necks. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, Support Schloss. That call started pretty nasty, but I think you raised some good points there, and hope you'll call back in one of these days.
Oh, you know it, sir. Thank you very much.
Goodbye. That was Support Schloss. That was not as bad as I thought it could have been. A little bit out of pocket with the Schloss stuff. I think he might have been trolling me there. But he had some good stuff to say. Let's see what you guys are saying. John Peroni, good to see you. Howdy and Gig'em, back to you. Noble Guy says, I'm playing basketball with Buzz right now. You're calling. You're a hooper? We got to hoop one of these days. I try to hoop in my basketball court where I hoop. Got transformed into a pickleball court. I'm not feeling good about it. Jackie Sherrill always talked about 4 super conferences, says Gridiron Masters. Seems like there will be 2 big ones and 1 or 2 minor ones. That's definitely how it sounds. But, Clemson and Florida State, hold quite a bit of weight. You still got Notre Dame sitting around. Who knows what happens there? Who knows what happens? You could see a third one form. There are enough teams that could potentially move to make a third one. We'll see. Jeb says, how many teams does the Big 12 have? I think 16. Jeb says, are you doing gameplay tonight? Nah, I got to get ready for my trip tomorrow. We'll not be doing gameplay. Is John Peroni related to Evan Peroni? That's a John Peroni question. All right, guys, we have open phone lines beyond the next caller, so if anybody wants to call in, now is a good time to do it. Oh, I got to pin the link in the chat. Let me do it on my phone because for some reason it doesn't work on my app on the computer. So let me go ahead and pin that link in the chat for you guys. If you want to call in, y'all just click that link. You'll be prompted to enter a waiting room. Very self-explanatory in there. Nothing hard. Just turn your mic on. No camera necessary. All right. Max, do you want to address the ACC comments that were just thrown around?
Yeah. So we got to talk about how money works here, right? Because y'all do realize that if Clemson leaves or Florida State leaves to any conference, including the Big 12, all their media money is forfeited to the ACC unless they somehow magically win this lawsuit, which all the cards are stacked against them. And currently, Clemson is trying to get out of this by saying what the meaning of is, and that's not working out too well for them. So I want to be clear right now. The Big 12 cannot save them if all the media money the Big 12 would be paying them would be pocketed right by the ACC. That is not going to save you.
How many years are left in that? It's 34, 2034, something like that? Or
so according to Florida State, not according to, but I'll say literally, there is a look-in by ESPN 2025 that technically allows them to kill the contract after the 2026-2027 academic year. However, nobody is left. Yeah. So why would ESPN say no to that deal whenever they can get Clemson and Florida State for less money?
Yeah.
They're not gonna take no to that option. They're going to extend the deal to summer 2036, so after the 2035 season.
So it's very likely that the ACC maintains its current status until much closer to that time.
The only way that anything goes wrong is that if somehow the ACC loses a lawsuit.
Right.
I'm going to be frank with you. That's highly unlikely to happen because, first off, remember how I said there's the race to judgment scenario going on? Well, unlike South Carolina and Florida, where Clemson and Florida State are suing, the ACC has an upper hand in North Carolina in both cases, even though they sued Clemson after Clemson sued the ACC. Because, first off, the North Carolina Business Court, where the case is filed, is a very speedy court. But second off, more importantly, the North Carolina Business Court has the rare power of skipping all appellate courts and going straight to the state Supreme Court.
Wow.
Which means that there will almost certainly be a judgment from North Carolina before a final judgment is found from Florida or South Carolina, because they don't have that intermediate step. And on top of this, the court in Florida is really slow. But that's a whole other thing.
Sounds like it.
So the notion that somehow the Big 12 is going to save the day or poach any ACC schools is nonsense. There is no way the Big 12 is going to be able to say, hey, we're going to give you enough money that makes it worth it for you to pay a $500 million exit fee, which would be including all the money you'd be forfeiting from us and media revenue, and then somehow private equity is going to make up the difference. That doesn't make any sense. There's no logical way to make that worthwhile. Like, that is absurd. There's no way for them to even break even on the amount of money they'd be paying to the ACC in exit fees and forfeited media revenue.
So right now, most likely scenario over the next 3 years is?
I think unless the ACC gets dinged up in the cases, I think the most likely scenario is that Florida State and Clemson will figure out how much it costs to leave and stand pat for a few years and try to wait until there's less years left on the ACC deal.
Yeah.
And potentially see if they can find a way to get into the SEC or Big Ten at a reduced share, maybe even less than what Oregon and Washington got from the Big Ten. I think it will have to be a significantly reduced share, perhaps even as reduced as what Cal and Stanford got from the ACC, 30%. but I don't think we're anywhere near that because they still can't get out.
Yeah.
And they're nowhere near it. And you know what? It's time. I got to comment on something. Josh Pate, how dare you? How dare you post cryptic water cup tweets and then act like, oh, I didn't really know anything. I was just talking to some lawyers who were familiar with the situation. And then you come crawling back now and say, oh, it's the suits that control realignment, blah, 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 blah. You know who controls realignment? The courts right now. And the courts say that Florida State and Clemson are in a contract that they signed and have earned benefits from for a very long time. And you can't just say that because you don't like how much they're paying you anymore that you can just leave. That's not how contract law works. And they're about to get taught that lesson again and again and again. But that's a whole other point.
We need to get this man on the horn with Josh Pate and put it on the airwaves right now, because they had this long back and forth, not long, but like several response thread back and forth on X
Feisty.
Last week. Yeah, this Max and Josh Pate, they were getting after it on X. We need to lock them in a room and see what comes out of the room.
That man is also obsessed with the ACC. He always talks about the travel that Cal and Stanford have to go through, but then he never makes the same point about UCLA or any of the other West Coast Big Ten schools. It's always the ACC. It's always the bad talk about the ACC, because at the end of the day, the ACC is the only conference out of the 4 remaining power conferences that is technically vulnerable, because the Big 12 already lost everybody that matters. Yeah. The Pac-12, dead. The Big 10 and ACC, forever enshrined. The only conference left to talk about that's controversial is the ACC. So everybody's pushing down the ACC because everyone knows it gets clicks to talk about what happens if the ACC implodes. Everyone wants to get clicks off the fact that the ACC is somehow top-heavy and therefore not as good as the Big 12, even though they get just as many close games as the Big 12. It's absurd. It's an agenda, because at the end of the day, what matters is getting clicks. But I'm not really here to talk about that. I'm just here to talk about one small other thing, which is I just want to end with the notion that it even makes sense, even beyond the money. Let's completely ignore the money. What is the reason for Florida State and Clemson to join the Big 12 in any respect, or any other ACC team? What are they getting from the Big 12? Are they getting better TV exposure? Absolutely not. The Big 12 doesn't have a TV network. Are they getting better matchups? Not really. I mean, it's like marginal at best.
Yeah, I would say yes, but it's not significant. I would say it's yes, but it's not like this huge upgrade.
But these teams ebb and flow. Like, sure, Stanford and Cal are bad now, but give it a few years and maybe TCU really sucks for an extended period of time. In Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy somehow retires.
I think there's more consistency among the non Texas, OU, A&M teams in the Big 12 than there is in the ACC.
Utah is literally about to lose their head coach, Drew.
It's been how long has he been there though? How long of a run has it been? And what's to say they don't continue it when he's gone? What's to say that?
Or what's to say that Nebraska was going to continue their run after they lose Tom Osborne? You don't know. It's all uncertain. That's
There's
my
several
whole point,
of those options in the Big 12, though.
There are several good options in the ACC who have been down their luck for like a decade, but they could rise again, just like you have teams on the other end of the Big 12 that were up a decade. True. These things never last. They don't last forever unless you're a blue blood.
Where did this Big 12 talk start? Where did the Big 12's talk start?
Well, what do you want to define as start? Where do we want to begin?
Is there actual smoke, or is this media speculation?
This smoke, the newest smoke, began when Ross Dellinger, who you know of, he made like an offhanded comment about how the Big 12 might be considering pursuing FSU and Clemson with private equity money. And then he quickly said, another day, he said, that was just speculation. I don't have any sourcing on that right now.
Yep.
And people took that and ran all the way across an ocean with it.
He was shooting the shit.
Yeah. And now, but regardless of Ross Dellinger, Big 12 Twitter has like a united front against any and all potential way to destroy the ACC because it gets them attention and because they think their commissioner can just destroy a conference just because they talk about it all the time, even though the circumstances between the Pac-12 and the ACC totally different. And it's just so aggravating to see people talk about the ACC like it's some fragile conference, as if it doesn't have a TV deal. It's going to go down scoring 36, and they're still earning more money than the Big 12. But whatever. I want to talk about Media Day now because that's what you're here for.
Yep. Thank you. I know you wanted to get that off your chest. Let's circle it back. Media Day.
Media Day. I love the feisty comments about the Longhorns that Zune had up in the horns he had in his bedroom. He said they were upside down. I thought that was hilarious.
That was great.
And that he didn't talk to anybody from Texas.
Yeah.
That was. I wish he would have done it a little deeper and said TU, but sometimes you just gotta remind him about that the next time, But he was still. They were all so well prepared for that conference,
Yes, they were.
And this is the first time that I'm about to be in the Media Day race, I've never cared about Media Days because I was always like, it's just a bunch of really horrible quality streams on ESPN Plus with the American. It was not a good show, man. And now SMU is about to be on television on ACC Network, and they get a primetime ESPN2 studio show. I feel like it feels almost as close as you can get to being part of the club, man. And so is this what it's been like the past however many years with the SEC? The cafeteria, man. The cafeteria at A&M, they always have the SEC Network on every day, 24/7.
Dude, yeah, it's awesome. You got the Feinbaum booth, you got the SEC, whatever, the pregame booth there. You have all the media members there. It's a nice big stage with like a state-of-the-art 100-foot screen behind the coach that turns into the colors of the team. Everyone's dressing in their Sunday best. It's beautiful, man. To me, it's like the spiritual start of the football season. It's like that's the moment because you get all this high quality, great audio, interviews, ESPN spots with like the national crew. Like I think Elko was on ESPN proper today. It's like, okay, this is the start of college football right now every year. So you're about to get your first taste of that as an SMU ACC Mustang.
Yeah, man. And you was talking about Feinbaum. The reason why Feinbaum gains traction is because he's very similar to Stephen A. Smith, and like he knows how to generate controversy.
Gotcha. Yeah, makes sense.
And he intentionally plays into it, including with the ACC, which inevitably, as an ACC fan, I will beef with him about because there's certain talking about how it's going to be so easy to pull teams out of conferences when that's just not so true.
Yeah.
But that's for another. We've already had that conversation. I think the one thing I can respect about that though is that unlike Stephen A, he generally, like, even though I sometimes think he doesn't know much outside the SEC, when he's talking about the SEC, he's never feels like he's just making stuff up.
Yeah, right.
Whenever he's talking about actual SEC exclusive topics, whereas Stephen A is kind of just makes up whatever he wants to say, even if it's totally false.
He makes up insane narratives, absolutely.
But I prefer the way that ACC Network does it, where they don't try to make crazy narratives about other conferences, except for like when it's something really serious, like the FSU situation last year, they had to defend themselves.
Yeah.
But outside of that, they generally don't get into fights about how, oh my God, the ACC is clearly so much better at X or Y, even though sometimes it is like basketball, but that's a whole other conversation. But right. I respect that the most. And I wish people would like listen to what some of those people have to say more, because I think that's the most exciting people, the people who you can listen to and who are going to be honest and aren't going to try to say anything out there or crazy just to get clicks and see what Lane Kiffin's face lights up on media day, and then he has to come up with some sort of retort just for it's like sometimes with Feinbaum it feels like he's got like a wrestling narrative played out in his mind that he's going to construe on television, and man, does he pull it off.
Yeah. What did you make of that whole Lane Kiffin exchange?
I didn't see it, but I heard it whenever you posted on the show because I was listening to the prior caller.
Yeah.
But man, you can't deny Feinbaum doesn't care what other people say straight to his face. He'll take it straight off the chin and just keep blabbing because he gets paid.
If he's gonna stir the pot and that's how he's gonna make his name for himself, you got to give him credit for taking it. Look, I was talking about Feinbaum earlier. It's like, how is this guy the college football guy? But it makes sense. He pushes the right buttons. He does the is it rage baiting? Is that what he does?
Yeah, sometimes it's he gets people to always want to come back and listen to whatever crazy thing he says next, and then make people angry and make people want to yell at their TV while he's talking.
Yeah.
He's kind of like, if you're an SEC fan, at the minimum, he's like a loudmouth, and if you're not an SEC fan, he's a heel. Yeah. Right. So, but in Herb, like, let's be real with Herb Street. Herb Street is probably like Herb Street, Joe Klatt, probably two of the most interesting voices in college football. But at the end of the day, they're straightforward, they're direct. You're not going to get clicks off of what Kirk Herbstreit says unless it's a topic that's already important. You can't get him to make clicks and views and television ratings out of thin air. He's just very straightforward, traditional, and that's not what sells. Yep. Unfortunately. And I say this as someone who, when I'm talking about the ACC network folks, honestly, they are a bit more traditional. They are more
I've noticed.
down to earth.
Yeah.
And I love that because the ACC they're not really in a position to be the heel. Right. Although with these lawsuits and with the Big 12 not realizing where they belong, maybe they should be a little bit more of a heel. But I still, at the end of the day, even if you prefer people to be serious, you can't ignore the money. At the end of the day, you always got to follow the money. So it is what it is, and it's sad that that's where we are as a society, but it's been that way ever since the foundation of the internet, really. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, have you got CFB 25 yet? I got the standard edition, so it unlocks at midnight.
Nice. You got to play me.
Yeah, but I don't have PS Plus right now, and also I don't want to play you until the people who own my apartment are supposed to be putting in new internet within the next month and a half or so. Gotcha. And I really don't want to mess up your game because my internet's kind of
fair. Dude, it's so good. I'm having to learn how to read defensive coverages better. I'm having to learn how to attack offenses better. It's so good. It's so rewarding, man. And you're there coaching me up saying it's ready for Heisman. I got to say, I was not ready for Heisman. You
weren't ready to dominate on Heisman, but you were ready to challenge yourself. I challenged myself and I learned about myself, but I appreciate you looking out. But so I'll talk about the game real quick because I've heard the sim engine. Just beware, the sim engine in Dynasty is not up to snuff right now. It's producing a lot of wacky outcomes. Yes. So I might hold off on doing a dynasty or like a serious dynasty until they say they patched it even once, just to at least try to give them another chance. Same thing goes with the recruiting a little bit. But my first thing day one after I'll pop open the Ultimate Team packs just because whatever, they're there. I don't want to have to forget about them. And then 6 months later, they're like, oh, I forgot to open these packs. And now I guess I'm bored. I'll play Ultimate Team solo. Yeah. But I'm going to do the SMU's new quarterback. I'm going to do Road to Glory. Oh, nice. That's fun. Dude, I'm just enjoying quick play and playing the people. The game itself, without having to go through a dynasty, without building a player on Road to Glory, without Ultimate Team, the game itself is such an experience, man. It's so rewarding. It's so much more difficult. It's so hard to stop people. Winning a game feels so good. Whereas in NCAA 14, I mean, come on, you watched the last dynasty. Winning was a formality for the SMU Mustangs under Coach Drew. Yeah, this is a real challenge, man. It's awesome. I can't wait for you to sink your teeth into it. But any closing thoughts, Max? Anything else on the game, media days, ACC, SEC, anything? I have one thought remaining for you, which is when you get good at this game, we got to see how many streams it takes you to be like number one on, not number one, but like clear out the number one tier of Road to CFP, which is the online play now. Yeah. I want to see how high ranked you can get up there, man, because you're going to have probably more time to put into this than me because you you got a nice setup over there. So.
I'm doing it on stream, so that itself is getting me better at the game. I'm trying to play as much as I can, but obviously, life's still there. But yeah, dude, I'm trying to get better on Road to CFP. I've played 4 games, 0-4. And I was going to win my last game, but I had to leave, so I had to quit at halftime, and I was up like 4 touchdowns. So it's a rough start. I don't know if I can bounce back from an 0-4 start in Road to CFP. I wonder, do you know how that ranking system works?
Well, essentially, I think you play a few initial games, and then they sort you into a tier.
These are placement
and then
games.
And then after they sort you into a tier, you have to win like a certain number of games. I think you have to win like 10 games out of 12, or 11 games out of 12, or something like that, and to get promoted to the next tier.
Gotcha.
And then you have to, and there's something about like winning the playoff. But essentially, you win a certain number of games, you get promoted, and it's like that. If you lose a certain number of games, you get demoted. Otherwise, you stay in the same tier, and eventually, you get to the top.
So it's like ranking up in like any modern, like maybe like a Rocket League ranking system or something like that.
Yeah, but just with the added twist of, I think at the end, instead of you just having to win a certain number of games in each tier, there's like a playoff. Like you have to win the playoff or whatever.
Gotcha. That's cool. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. That's my meal right now. That's what I'm sinking my teeth into, and it's Dynasty's crazy right now. I am playing Texas. Last game of the year, we're 8-2. Texas or 9-2. Is that right? Yeah, it'd be 9-2. Texas is 8-3. So playoff berth on the line. Florida's number 1 in the SEC at 1 loss. Georgia lost 4 games. The simulation went crazy, man. It's insane.
Yeah, it's not. I think it's a little broken. Also, do you know why one of the big YouTubers told us why the FCS teams always get injured in game?
Oh, why is that?
So, because the FCS team is playing like 15 different games every week against whoever has a game against, they don't like make 15 duplicate copies of each team to have wear and tear. Instead, that same team suffers all the wear and tear for all the games every week.
That's so funny.
And so they are going to have to patch that.
That's amazing. And is that cumulative, like week on week, 8 games a weekend? Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Every week it's cumulative. So that they're just going to be like torn to shreds by the end of the season. But in the early part of the season, they've been killing people. I saw them beat like Texas, all sorts of highly ranked teams, because they're a little overpowered. I saw they're ranked in like the low 70s, and honestly, I think that's a little crazy, because unless you're North Dakota State or like South Dakota State or like any other Missouri Valley Conference school or some of the Big Sky teams like the Montanas, you really shouldn't be that high overall. So like either this is like the very best of FCS that you play against, which is crazy because most teams schedule the worst of FCS every year. Unless you're Dion, and if you're Dion, you're gonna get exposed.
They're gonna lose that game, dude.
They're going to lose that game, and it's going to be amazing because, you know what's crazy? North Dakota State is not even that good right now. They're below standards. They're not the king of FCS. South Dakota State is the king of FCS.
I think they're going to lose, dude. That's going to be – isn't that game on a Thursday?
I think so, but I don't know that for a fact.
I'm pretty sure it is. Oh, my goodness. All right, Max. Thanks for the long call. Yeah, man. We'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks, but football is right around the corner. I'll talk to you later.
Can I close for you real quick? A quick close?
I have one more caller, but go for it.
My quick close is the next time we will have a conversation on the ACC will be after August 15th, because that's when the technical exit date is, and if you want to leave the league for the next season. And I'm telling you right now, no one's exiting before then, but we'll have it officially then, and then I will have my second party of the year about the ACC.
Yes, sir.
See you then.
All right, man. Have a good one, Max.
See ya.
And that was Max. Good stuff. Yes, Jeb. He knows the politics of football. Absolutely. He got into it with Josh Pate on X, Jeb. They had like a multi-tweet thread back and forth where there was some name calling. Josh Pate was getting defensive. And, I don't know if what Max says is true. There's definitely some clickbait going on with what Pate is doing. Unless Pate just is actually ignorant to the facts that Max just spelled out for us. I don't know. I'm not as into the lawsuit stuff as he is. Maybe Pate would have a great retort to that. I don't know. But it was interesting. Mike Gundy's never leaving OSU, says Gridiron. Dude, I know. He's been there forever. Long tenured coaches is awesome. I hope Elko's that guy for us, and he could be. All right, last caller of the night. Theo, you're on with Drew. How's that nice, crispy new internet working for you?
I don't know. You tell me. Can you hear me better?
You sound great, and you have not been kicked out of the waiting room at all.
Right?
Yes,
That's
dude.
hilarious.
Yeah, dude, you're doing good. So how you feeling, Theo? Like, what's going on? And I know you have some stuff, an agenda, if you will, some stuff you want to get off your chest.
Man, I let the agenda go. I stopped worrying about all that. I'm chilling, man. I'm waiting for the new year. I'm actually waiting to see how this football season plays out.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see how SMU, Cal, and Stanford does in the ACC.
Yep.
I'm interested in seeing how Oregon and USC and UCLA adapts to the Big Ten, because it's a different style of football up there than it is than what the Pac-12 was. Interested in seeing what the Pac-12 does. Do they take the Mountain West kids and try to build on that? What happens to the Big 12? And listening to Jeb, or not Jeb, but the other guy, and all the stuff going on with the ACC, and having interest in plucking guys from the Big 12 to the ACC, or ACC to the Big 12. It's all kind of confusing, and just kind of trying to sit back and enjoy the ride, because it's no longer the college football we grew up with. So you kind of just sit back and enjoy it, kind of like you do professional sports, and see how that goes.
It's a bit of a new game. All right, let me ask, since you're bringing this stuff up, I'll ask you one kind of fun question regarding that, and then we'll get into maybe some. Have you seen the A&M Media Day stuff yet?
I've saw quite a bit of it, yeah.
All right, we'll get into that in a minute, but going off of what you just said, of those new teams entering new conferences this year, give me maybe the top two that you think have the most likely chance of success in their new conference in 2024. I'll give you mine after you give me yours. I already have mine since I thought of the question.
Yeah, I would have to say Oregon in the Big Ten, and surprisingly, I'm going to go SMU in the ACC.
Those are my two as well.
Although, if you want to watch an exciting running back, and I mean like one of the best running backs I've seen since a while, Jaden Ott of Cal is going to be a problem in the ACC. He is going to be a problem. They didn't have an offensive line last year, and he still put up like 1,500 yards rushing.
Damn.
Something like that. It was crazy. Dude can catch out of the backfield, can do it all. And then they picked up our center, whatever his name was. I forgot. No, not the center, the guard. They picked up the guard.
Cal picked up our guard?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I forget his name, but yeah, one of the guards that went to the transfer portal, he went over to Cal.
Nice.
So they're trying to fix the offensive line, and they're playing in the ACC, which there's some D lines there in the ACC that you question, but I don't think any of them were like any different than what they already were seeing in the Big 12.
Right.
Or the Pac-12. So it's pretty on par with what they were seeing. So I can see him maybe winning like ACC Player of the Year.
Damn.
Randomly, but overall, I think Cal's going to be down. So I'm going to have to go with Oregon, because Oregon, I think, is the most talented team moving to a program or moving to a new conference.
Not a bad
overall.
schedule either.
And they got a pretty decent schedule.
Yeah, I have it up right now. Idaho, Boise State, at Oregon State, rivalry, at UCLA, obviously that's right in their wheelhouse. Michigan State, at home. Ohio State, at home, big, maybe one of the games of the year for sure. At Purdue, Illinois, at Michigan, obviously tough place to play. Maryland, at Wisconsin, Washington. There's definitely a path to 10 wins for Oregon, 100%. I mean, they can lose their two toughest games and make it.
I would say that watch out for that Boise State game. I know we all think, Boise State has fallen off from what they were as the program killers earlier in the 2000s, but they're still going to get up to play Oregon.
Oh yeah.
And they still have decent talent. I'm not going to say they're like what they were, but they're definitely decent.
Yep.
You got that game, and then at Wisconsin, the week before playing, what you call it, at home. That's going to be a tough one too.
Yeah. At Wisconsin, they have a bye the week after than Washington, but yeah, obviously that's gonna at Camp Randall going to be a very tough game. Yeah, I mean, there's a path. We'll see what happens. I think they're one of the most talented teams right now this year, and obviously recruiting really, really well. SMU, really nice schedule. I think they have a lot to play for. And then, like you said, Cal could be – who knows what Cal is. But anyway, Theo, I want to get your biggest takeaways from A&M's media today, anything that you liked. What were your takeaways from today?
Overall, I liked the mentality of what we heard from everybody. Yes, they did try to get them slipped up with some comments about Texas and stuff like that, but they really didn't throw any, like, what would we call that, bulletin board material?
Yeah, right.
You know, they kept it pretty respectful.
Yeah.
They also talked about the development in both the locker room and the atmosphere and all of the above.
Yep.
And I liked hearing, some of the stories about the discipline and stuff that they've been instilled with or trying to be instilled with, because a disciplined team is going to come together and fight for each other better than someone who's undisciplined, because then their emotions are controlling them and
Absolutely.
so on.
And that was mentioned by all three players multiple times. And, of course, we've heard Elko say time and time again, we're not going to talk about it, we're going to be about it. And it sounds like they were about it the entire offseason, whether it was being at breakfast, lunch, and dinner on time, being at workouts on time, just showing up, being there, doing the part, and holding each other accountable, putting each other kind of in each other's hands, where if one guy in the group misses, the whole group suffers, which is just a microcosm of how football is, such a team sport. I mean, of course, in the offseason, you're not in the field, you're not in pads, but you're learning lessons that can translate to on the field practical stuff in every way that you can in the offseason. They're maximizing their time. They're maximizing their control over these players, which is awesome to hear. And I think that's probably the biggest culture change from before, because we've heard, whether it's a Freudian slip or whether it's, he said, she said, that maybe some players weren't as locked in under the previous regime and getting away with missing stuff or being late to stuff. And that's totally different now. I think Shamar mentioned there was a week adjustment, but after they realized what punishment was at hand, straightened them up pretty quickly. So that was great to hear. And speaking of the bulletin board stuff you mentioned, I loved it when I think it was a Texas reporter, don't quote me on that, I believe it was, asked Elko, asked Elko, what is it? How is recruiting now that you don't have this thing over OU and Texas saying, okay, yeah, we're the team in this region that's in the SEC? And Elko, answered it pretty straightforwardly, just saying, yeah, we just have to see what each player is about and what each school can offer that player, and maybe we offer what they need. But I thought it was kind of funny that they're asking him that. And, of course, it's only July right now. But A&M's fourth in recruiting in the country right now, and those teams are sitting several spots behind. I thought that was kind of a funny look. But anyway, you're right. They handled those questions great.
Not just that, but it's kind of funny to ask that question when Texas is like 20th ranked right now in recruiting, and they just lost several high recruits.
Shout out Oregon.
And Oregon is going to be a monster if the rumors are true. And Oregon's coach comes from the SEC, so he kind of knows how to shape it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't know. I also saw that the not the presidents, but the athletic directors went to, or maybe I'm getting confused. The presidents went to the athletic directors and asked for the SEC to increase their rosters to 105 players instead of 85 players.
Interesting. I mean, scholarship, right? I mean, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, I think something that was thrown around earlier with the revenue sharing and that whole era of discussion was that I think scholarships were going to be counted like school-wide or something like that. I don't know. I think it's set to expand to 105, but they're going to like get rid of walk-ons or reduce walk-ons or something like that.
Yeah, it's something weird.
Yeah, we'll see.
And then I don't know. It's just gonna get weirder and weirder as the years go. For now.
Yeah. Any other takeaways?
I really, I don't know. I'm really enjoying the ride so far.
Yeah.
Even in baseball, like it's hellacious to deal with what we had to deal with. But everyone ends up showing their true colors if you pay attention to it.
Yep.
And it's funny how the only people that's flipped to Schloss are people who don't know him yet. And that's happened in both stops. And so I'm kind of questioning who was Slosh in the first place.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of weird.
The question has to be asked for sure. And there's no denying he's a great baseball mind, baseball coach, but the relationship aspect, I mean, the cat could be out of the bag now. Who knows? Who knows? It feels like, I don't know about you, and this is maybe glass half full. It definitely is. Would you say that A&M is going to be in a better spot in baseball going forward post-Schloss after everything that happened?
I'm almost willing to bet it is.
Yeah, in the same boat.
I'm almost tempted to go bet it is, because not only did we return most of our team this year, that's put us into a good position to continue the recent string of success. But it also exposed Slosh for who he was.
Yep.
Or who he is. And going forward, give me a second.
Should I just drink some of this right now and just see what happens?
Good luck with that.
Did you catch any of that from last night? Oh,
I did.
It was bad, dude. I touched my eyes.
Brutal.
The mouth part wasn't really that bad. It was the eye that killed me.
Oh, no, never do that. Never do that.
I don't even know how I did it. Yeah, anyway. But yeah, dude, I feel the same way. I feel like I think I would wager. So based on my experience, I've been a very, very casual consumer of Aggie baseball until this season with the Omaha run. And that was the peak of my Aggie baseball fandom. But then everything that went down, following the players coming back to A&M, watching the whole flip with Early, that whole thing took it to an either higher level that I didn't even know was there post Omaha. So if I feel this way, I would say I'm a pretty plugged in and passionate football fan. I would say I maybe, you know, I'm like the rest of everybody in this chat on a Thursday night talking football. I would say that there are others like us or like me that were casual consumers of the baseball sport, but people with deeper pockets, people who want to take action and do what they can in supporting this program. I would wager that there's much more NIL money at their disposal going forward. That's just me. Is that could be just wishful thinking and what we hope happens. But speaking from experience, as passionate that I know I am about Texas A&M and the football team, I unlocked levels of passion I didn't even know I had for baseball. And I'm sure others did.
See, I hadn't really been a big baseball follower until 21's run to the World Series.
Yeah.
And then I was kind of hooked. And then last year I followed, and I made some relatively rookie mistakes, and I was questioning that team if they had it in them to make it to the regionals, even that, you know. So, but then you could see the development there. You could see the guys there. And then, you know, this year was just such a magical run. Even in the last game of the season, I never thought we were out of it.
I'll say this. This is what kind of triggered, just speaking from, this is probably not a common thread, but this is what kind of piqued my interest. Watching the regional shortcoming versus Stanford last year, being impressed by Braden Montgomery on that team, and then to see him choose to come to A&M, that honestly was the instance that my interest spiked. And because of that, I was there day one, all day, hyped to watch the first game of the year, and I was hooked, and it just got better and better and better. Omaha, the highs of getting there, Caden Kent, Oregon, not Kyle Field, Bluebell Park, one of the best Aggie moments ever, probably. I mean, come on now, that was amazing. And then Omaha, getting to the very end, getting to the final, and then obviously the low of losing, that sting, that emotional moment, makes it stick more. And then everything that happened after, it's like, okay, there's no going back from this. Pandora's box is open for me. I'm into it.
So, speaking of Bluebell, I would actually like to see Bluebell Park look similar to like maybe Minute Maid. You know how they have the slides and stuff in the corner
Yeah.
for all the kids.
Yep.
Or I would like them to look like maybe Angel Stadium, where there's like a waterfall out in the center field.
Yeah.
Just something that's unique to A&M.
Sure.
Keep the idea of the 360 around walkway and adding more suites and stuff like that, but also make it iconic. Kyle Field is iconic. I would like to see the rest of our facilities kind of step into that mold as well.
Yeah.
If we're going to be this kind of program that we expect it all to be. Now, I will say that we do have to kind of budget properly. I'm going to say we're going to have to watch and bite our tongues a little bit. We know Trev was brought in to watch the budget and the bottom line.
Yep.
We know that. So, unless we really want to, and I'm talking to all the 19 of us who are on this call or on this view and who will watch it, if we don't want to be in that situation, then we all need to step in and we need to donate whatever we can to the 12th Man Foundation and the NIL fund.
Let's go.
Because, we're going to be in an era where, there may be revenue sharing. And if there is revenue sharing, that's going to hurt the bottom line of athletic programs.
Yeah.
And that means that they might have to cut a program or two that we don't want to lose. Like our swimming team. Our swimming team is one of the best teams in the country. They're consistently in the top 15, top 10 in the nation. Well, they also don't produce a whole lot of funds.
Yeah.
So if we don't start giving funds to those programs and overall the 12th Man Foundation and the NIL fan, then the athletic department is going to have to say, okay, well, as much as we love this program and as much as it brings, top 10 records to us, we can't afford to keep pushing it out so they can go swim in Oregon or Maine or Illinois or wherever they have to go.
Yep. And as long as the 12th man, Aggies, believe in the program, believe in the athletic department, I believe in Aggies, they're going to donate. Ooh.
So,
I believe that that's the case. And after everything that happened with baseball, and if Elko is the guy that we think he is, I think this kind of 1 to 2 years right now could be a turning point in that regard, and donations and buy-in from the 12th man. I think right now is where Trev and Welsh and everybody proves that this is a worthwhile investment for the fans that really want it to be what it could be. But it's a really good point to bring up.
I got a surprise for you, by the way.
What's up?
My ceiling or my floor for this year's football team is up.
So where were you last time? You were 7 last time?
I was 7. I'm now at 9.
Oh my goodness.
I'm at 9-3.
And you're cautious. You don't let yourself get too high.
No. It just hearing the way the guys are responding, seeing the way the guys have responded in terms of Turner's weight gain, Samu's weight loss, um, just everything around it.
Dude, I was talking to some LSU people. There is a level of, I don't want to say fear, that's going too far. They're concerned that Moffitt's at Texas A&M.
Mm-hmm.
That's a concern for people that know who he is.
And
That's a very tangible benefit to have a guy like that in your program.
And anytime we've had that 9-10 win season, we've been around guys who had that type of weight conditioning fear. You know, in 2000 or in 2020, we had the kid from Oklahoma that went back up to Oklahoma, Schmidt, I think his name was. Then in 2012 and 2013, we had a really good strength and conditioning coaches then too.
Yeah.
It all comes down to strength and conditioning in the SEC. Honestly,
it's huge. We've suffered from it the last 3-4 years.
Right. And I don't think it's so much as like injury conditioning that we've suffered from. Like,
it's toughness in the game.
It's toughness in the game. It's
late game performance so much.
Right. Mental mistakes, you know, late in games, conditioning late in games. How many times do we see people go out with cramps late in games? Like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say injuries are at the foot of strength and conditioning because injuries happen no matter what. You could be the most perfect conditioned human being. And when your body decides to go ouch, it goes ouch. But for me, I think the games, there's 4 games I'm worried about, and I think we can get 3 of the 4.
Which games?
They're all at home.
Okay, the home slate pretty much then, besides the G5 schools.
Right. I'm not afraid of Texas. I think they're being overhyped. They lost a whole bunch of talent, especially up front in the D-line.
Yes. Defense is a major question mark for them, for sure. It has to be.
Especially at wide receiver. Running back, they're kind of restarting at running back as well. Yeah, although they have a stable elite running backs, you still got to understand what it's like to run in the SEC.
Sure.
Think about how Josiah Corbin talked about it way before he got hurt and how he had to really cover up the ball and was worried about fumbles. Isaiah Spiller talked about it being a freshman running back in the SEC. That all counts. That's all going to be a learning curve there.
For sure.
Even their linebacker core, they lost Jalen Ford, who was their best pass rusher on the second.
He's a hell of a player. Yep.
You know, so they're going to have a lot to replace. And by the time we get there, who knows what injuries will look like? What if Kelvin Banks isn't playing at left tackle because he's hurt? What if, you know, God forbid, Quinn Ewers is hurt and it's Arch's first start? You know what I mean?
Oof.
Could you imagine that?
That'd be insane.
And then, you know, their secondary, even in their own offense, killed their secondary when they knew what was coming.
Yep.
So
and look, they added Makuba. They had a couple guys, but like Makuba was a guy that was getting beat out at Clemson. Let's just be honest. Right. I mean, it has to be a question mark. And of course, college football, anything like you can make big jumps in position groups year to year, but it's rarely completely fixed, especially if you bring all the same guys back.
You know, and then you got LSU. Is LSU going to be the same without Jalen Daniels? What about that defense? That defense lost 3 NFL defensive tackles that were drafted.
I just don't get the LSU hype. I'm going to be honest. I think they're going to be fine. They'll win. They'll be a bowl team plus. I would be very surprised if we're halfway through the year and we're still looking at them as a playoff contender. I think they'll be a fine team. I just don't see them there this year with the schedule they have.
Mizzou kind of scares me, but Mizzou lost Darius Robinson, their best defensive lineman. They also lost their best offensive lineman. They lost their running back. And so basically, you're dealing with just Luther Burden and the quarterback, Connor Cook.
They have a couple good receivers, but yes, they do lose that stuff.
And then they also Missouri also lost one of their best cornerbacks.
Yeah.
So there's that. I respect the teams I'm talking about. I respect, but I don't fear that we would lose. Like, I would call them toss-ups. I would call them 50-50 games.
At worst, yeah. Right now, I'm 55-45 with LSU, or if not higher on that game right now. I just don't see it. Yeah.
And then, of course, Notre Dame. Well, Notre Dame has to come down to A&M in that humidity, playing at night in 85 degrees with 70% humidity, and it feels like 95 still. You're not used to that coming up from the Corn Belt.
Quarterback coming off of an injury. I mean, as much as that could hurt them, he could be the X factor that helps them, but that's a lot to ask in a hostile environment, first starting a new team with 2 new starting tackles on offense. Obviously, Joe Alt was huge. The right tackle was also really good for them. Against A&M's defensive end room, that's a lot to ask out of a first start for a quarterback at a new team coming off of a more recent and just as significant of an injury as Connor Wigman.
And then everyone points out to that defensive line for Notre Dame, but they also replaced both starting defensive ends, if I'm not mistaken.
It's true, but that's like, I think from what I've heard and talking to them, everything they replaced on defense was like when Antonio Johnson was coming off the bench for A&M. They're very excited about all the guys that are replacing on defense, essentially, for most of their guys.
It's the first game of the season. They're going to have to learn how to play
True.
that. And then
True.
On top of that, they also lost their whole linebacking core. They lost 3 linebackers.
They are starting fresher at linebacker. Yes. Their DB group should be really good, though.
Right. So, I feel like, if we're trying to check off who has an advantage where, I still feel like A&M's offensive line would have an advantage against their defensive line because we are actually returning starters that has played.
And returning depth, yeah.
And returning depth on top of that. So if someone does get hurt, you have someone who can plug in who's played before.
Yep.
I still trust Connor Wigman more than I trust Riley Leonard. Although Leonard's not a bad quarterback. I actually love him. Connor has a propensity to throw the ball where it needs to go, when it needs to go, how it needs to go, without even necessarily the wide receiver knowing it's going to them.
Sure, absolutely. Timing, footwork, release. Yeah, he has that.
And
that's his best stuff right there.
That comes in handy when you're playing a team like Notre Dame, who whole entire defense is like their go-to spot.
Yep.
So, so like I said, it's 50-50 across the board in those 4 games, and I don't see why we can't win 3 of them.
And they're at home.
And we're at home. So
let me ask you this, though. As high as you are on those games, would you not consider road games closer to 50-50 because of the road factor, like the Florida game,
and
South Carolina?
That's why I say 9-3. That's why I say 9-3.
Lose 2 of those.
Because I can give you room to lose to a Auburn.
Yeah.
While you're looking ahead to Texas, I can give you room to lose to Mississippi State, even though God forbid we should not.
Yeah,
but
that one should be a good one. We should be fine on that one, but you never know.
It's Starksville. It's Stark Vegas, as Olin calls it.
See, that's the thing I'm trying to get through to my dad. My dad's a diehard Texas fan, and he doesn't think there's a big difference between going on the road to Kansas and going on the road to the middle of the pack SEC schools, going to Stark Vegas, going to the Grove, going to anywhere. This is a different game. I mean, these teams aren't always up, but damn, these fan bases, these road environments, they're up, at least for the first quarter. Go to South Carolina any of the last 7-8 years when they've been struggling and tell me that Sandstorm isn't one of the coolest crowd experiences you've ever seen, even when they suck.
I fear going to South Carolina sometimes.
If you go to that stadium, it's an NFL freaking stadium, dude. 80,000. It's a presence. It's a giant-ass stadium with a passionate-ass fan base. That's a real environment.
And it's a beautiful stadium. Like literally, I think it's one of the best stadiums in the United States. It's well kept. It's a beautiful stadium. It's not falling apart. You know, you got the hedges up against the wall. You got and you know, um, I don't. The only school that I would say that doesn't have a nice stadium is Vanderbilt, and even then they're remodeling theirs at the moment.
Yeah, Vandy. I don't know much about Kentucky's either since we don't play them that often.
Oh, Kentucky's is beautiful.
Yeah.
Kroger Field is amazing. Now it's small.
Yeah.
It's on the smaller side for the SEC. It's only like 55, 56,000 or 65,000, something like that.
Yeah.
But it's also in Lexington, Kentucky, which is like in the middle of nowhere, Kentucky. You know, it's not Louisville on the river, and it doesn't border Ohio in that area.
Yeah.
And on top of that, like they didn't really care about football until Stoops got there. So
Right.
for what they have and what they had as a donor base, what Kentucky's field looks like is amazing. It, especially when they do like the blue checkerboard, like
That's cool.
Neyland Stalin does,
Dude.
with the orange.
It's cool.
It makes it really cool because
Yep.
you don't really get to see blue and white paint all over an end zone like that very often.
Oh yeah, and speaking of Neyland, I mean top tier stadium. Honestly, maybe not top of the top tier, but it's amazing. I went last year. It's as good as it gets, man. I mean it's not as modern and as flashy and as nice as Kyle Field, but it's pretty much just as big. Pretty much just as loud, except maybe not as organized in the yells and the sound, obviously. Extremely huge, passionate fan base. LSU, Death Valley, obviously, extreme. Bryant-Denny Stadium, people call it kind of wine and cheesy. I think it's an amazing crowd, amazing stadium. Sanford
Right.
Stadium, Georgia, I mean, come on.
You know it's going to be crazy.
Obviously. Kyle Field, amazing. Now, obviously, DKR and Norman, great additions, fit right in. Those stadiums. I think they live up to it. It's just.
I don't know about Gaylord. Gaylord doesn't seem to fit the mold quite yet.
It's. I mean, it's 80,000. It's big.
I hadn't seen it in a few years, so they may have added some additions to it.
It's 80,000. That stands up to the rest.
My dad actually lives in Norman, and I actually got to drive by Gaylord Stadium.
Yeah.
And from what it looked like a high school stadium, but bigger. like the stands were metal and stuff. So
Yikes. I know they defended that turf pretty well throughout the 2000s and early 2010s. I mean, it's been a fortress for them. So we'll see how it does in the SEC.
And then Missouri's, rebuilding theirs, and even then, Missouri's looks absolutely beautiful.
It's a beautiful stadium. It's been tiny, horrible TV angle, but yeah, I want to see what the work looks like on it. It's a growing program.
When we go up to Missouri in a couple of years, I would love to go to that game. Like,
I'm really, yeah, for sure.
The road trip games I would like to go to.
And we didn't even mention the Swamp, dude. Oh my goodness.
How could you forget the Swamp?
We'll be there this year. Ugh. It's taken me like actively not pulling the trigger to not go to that game just because I can't afford it. But oh my goodness, it's an opportunity.
The good thing about going to the Swamp is that we'll be in our whites, hopefully.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully we get to choose to be in our
game.
whites.
Yeah, day game. It's a huge advantage. We talked about this. When I was offense, when I was practicing, it's a big difference wearing white over blue. Huge difference. Major difference. It's honestly, it's good for significant performance change.
Yeah. Usually it's good for a good 10% performance change.
It's huge. You sweat way less. It's amazing. But anyway, all right, Theo, any closing thoughts? I do have to get off of here pretty soon because I have a trip tomorrow.
Just closing thought is just keep supporting these teams, keep donating to these teams, keep trying to help the 12th Man Foundation, keep helping the NIL stuff, because we didn't even get a chance to talk about basketball. Basketball has a huge slate this year.
Yeah.
Amazing slate. And, we're all trying to wait for these programs to step up, but I really like where we're at with all three of the programs.
Yeah.
Basketball made the postseason. Baseball made the postseason.
Yep.
Now it's up to football.
It feels like a good opportunity this year, man. Yep. Good stuff, Theo, man. I appreciate you calling in, and I'm sure we'll be doing it again real soon.
Yes, sir. Have a good one.
Later. All right, guys. Great show tonight. I do have to get out of here. I have a show tomorrow, a trip tomorrow, but I'll be posting a lot more stuff as we approach the year. I want to do a video for each position group. I'll obviously have my official prediction video going to come out sometime during fall camp. A lot of stuff's going to be coming. Of course, we'll keep doing this. I'll keep bringing you CFB 25 gameplay whenever I can. Oh, I'm excited, man. It's real. It's here. This is the unofficial start to the season for me. So until the next time, guys, thanks for being here. And gig 'em.